Ladies and gentlemen, we will now start with the Technovate event. And for the Technovate, I want to invite on the stage the Managing Director of Qatar Science and Technology Park. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage Dr. Maher Hakim. Maher will be soon taking over and interviewing these wonderful two gentlemen. Let's welcome them on the stage. First of all, let's welcome on stage Mr. Ali Karabey, Managing Director of 2012. 212, please. Stronger applause. All right, guys, you're live. Great. And the second panelist, let's welcome on the stage co-founder and Managing Director of the Alchemist Accelerator, Mr. Ravi Belani. So, gentlemen, the stage is yours. May Technovate begin.
Let's make sure people take their seats first. I'm going to wait until people take their seats. By the way, I think one thing we forgot to mention is that if you need a restroom, you know, not many people probably have been here before. So unfortunately, you either have to go to one of these two buildings or you have to take the elevator to the second floor. That's where you find it, right, Gada? Is there any other place where we can find restrooms? No? Yeah. So this is very exciting day for me personally, for two reasons. One is the Arab Innovation Academy is a program that we've been working on it for a little bit over a year, and it was very heartening for me to see the teams that have demonstrated the actual true value of a program like this. You know, where we bring people together to learn how to become tech entrepreneurs. And I think the intensity of the program, you know, Ravi and I were talking about that. 2 weeks ago, most of these students who've come here, they didn't have the confidence, they didn't have the know-how, and they didn't have the ability to actually articulate the value that they're going to bring to market. And I think having 10 teams come here and wow us all, I think was just an amazing thing, right? You agree? Have you been wowed? Very good. But the other reason I'm very excited about today is the fact that I have two of my good friends here on Technovate stage. I've been trying to get them to Doha and Qatar for a while, and this is their first trip to Doha. So Ravi and Ali, welcome to Qatar. Now that you know where I live or where I work, stop asking me why you're there anymore. So let me start by letting the two guests introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about themselves and the organizations that they represent. So maybe we'll start with you, Ravi.
Sure. Does this work? Yep. Hi, everybody. It's beautiful to be here. I can understand why you're here. I have two hats. One is I teach entrepreneurship in the engineering school at Stanford, and we put all of our educational materials up at ecorner.stanford.edu if people want to see it. And then I also direct Alchemist, which is an accelerator for enterprise startups, or startups that monetize from enterprises. We give a small amount of money, about $36,000, to a lot of companies a year, and they come to San Francisco for a 6-month program. Unlike other accelerators, Alchemist is backed by the VCs, so our investors are funds like Khosla Ventures and DFJ and Mayfield and USVP. And CB Insights rated Alchemist the #1 accelerator in 2016 based on the amount of funding that our alums receive. Y Combinator was #2, Techstars was #3, and 500 Startups was #4. So we have a program where we really focus on a structured path towards sales, fundraising, and mentorship in the United States. So that's us.
When did you start, and how did you start Alchemist?
We started in 2012, and the way we started it is I used to work at DFJ. So I was at DFJ, which is a VC fund, for 6 years. And I don't know if you know about how Sequoia funded Y Combinator, but the dilemma that the VCs had in Silicon Valley was that they have all the money in the world, but they didn't have the time to focus on seed stage innovation. And what was happening is that the seed stage companies, the early companies, are getting bigger quicker than they ever have before. So I don't know if you guys have seen Slack. Slack is the most recent Silicon Valley company that's had the shortest unicorn puberty period. They went from launch to $1 billion valuation in 9 months. Okay, that's a ridiculous velocity, but the dilemma for the VCs is that if they aren't doing the seed stage innovations, these companies are breaking out really quickly. But if they are, they're getting distracted from their core, which is really they need to be focusing on writing big $5 million investment checks. So the accelerators are a way for them to keep a pulse on what's happening without creating the conflicts of signaling risks that have happened before in the past. So when people look at Y Combinator, they don't think about Sequoia. And when people look at Alchemist, they don't necessarily think about Coastal Ventures or DFJ or USVP. So that was the idea. And I had funded 2 companies when I was at DFJ that became billion-dollar companies. One was called Twitch, and the other was called Pubmatic. And so DFJ took a leap of faith and funded Alchemist.
And how many companies have gone through your programs so far?
So far, we have had about 170 companies now that have graduated and are at least 12 months out post-demo day. And about 80 have closed institutional rounds of those 170. Yeah.
Ali, you'd like to introduce yourself and 212?
Sure. Hi, everyone. First of all, it's great to be here. And the scene right now is even more amazing. I was very impressed when I was sitting there. It's even more amazing from here. So thank you for having us to begin with. Great to be in Qatar. I'm Ali. I am the founder of 212. 212 was the first institutional venture capital company based in Istanbul. Our first fund of $30 million was set up to invest in technology startups in Turkey. Our second fund that we are raising and hoping to close in the next 2 months is actually going to be focusing on Turkey as well as MENA and Eastern Europe. That's why we are here. We've been spending the last 5 years traveling across MENA, so we actually have done our homework. Unfortunately, this is my first time here in Qatar, but I'm pretty sure it's not going to be my last time in Qatar from what I've seen so far. I also have a second hat, actually, now that I think about it. I also run a small fund of fund that funds NGOs in Turkey. So my life is all about giving. I invest from the left hand, from the right hand. I always invest either in startups or NGOs that aim to change people's lives in our region.
How did you get in the business yourself?
Myself?
Yes, how did you get to become a VC in Turkey? What was your background?
In my previous life, before my ponytail and my beard, I was a banker in New York and London. I worked for Arthur Andersen, then Morgan Stanley, then Deutsche Bank. And after the financial crisis of 2008, I came back home in 2009, and I decided that I don't want to do banking anymore. I wanted to create real businesses. I wanted to empower real people. I am the only person in my family who's not an architect. So I always had that problem in my life. I had a complex saying, my parents can show you the buildings that they built, but I could never show anyone what I built. So I said I need to build something real that I can touch. We launched an angel network in Turkey in 2010, and at that meeting I met my other co-founder, Numan. Numan has been here quite a few times. And we said, wouldn't it be nice if we actually launch a fund together that will actually empower the entrepreneurs? And that's how 212 came about in 2011.
Okay, so the reason I'm excited about having both of you on the stage is that both of you have shared with me your thoughts about expanding your current business into the MENA region. In your case, Ali, you're raising a fund, and the new fund is going to invest in MENA tech companies. In your case, Ravi, your accelerator, you're thinking, okay, you're seeing some signals about the MENA region that are interesting, and you would like to figure out a way to actually participate. So tell me more.
We follow the talent. So we already have funded many MENA companies, but the way that we fund them is that we bring them to San Francisco. So we don't care wherever the best engineers are. We only fund technical teams, and we look for the best engineers, then we bring them to San Francisco. And even if they leave, then they've been indoctrinated, and then they go back to their home countries. A couple things have happened recently. One is that we've had several companies that have come from the MENA region that have gotten venture-backed. In fact, I was just in Jordan, and we had one company called Mixed Dimensions from Amman, which is a Jordanian and a Palestinian co-founding team. They came to San Francisco. They raised $3 million, and now they have a company of 45 amazing engineers in Jordan, including some phenomenal Syrian refugee engineers, where they just have the whole market on that engineering talent. And we've seen some really phenomenal engineers that have just blown our mind, coming from regions that we didn't expect: Jordan, Egypt, Syria, and so that's part of what's getting us excited. That team now does not sell into Jordan. They don't even sell into the MENA region. They sell into the United States, but their whole operations are in Jordan, and their cost structure is literally a quarter of what it would be if it was in San Francisco. And so that gets us but they're building a 3D printing company. And so we love that because it's very, very different. The other thing that was happening was recent, and then we also had a Dubai entrepreneur who's doing a construction company with drones that got funded by Andreessen Horowitz, and he raised $5 million. And again, Dubai was a place where there was a regional competitive advantage when it came to construction, and now they've moved to the United States. The United States and Silicon Valley does not have a monopoly on talent. In fact, we import our talent. So Silicon Valley has been fed by great engineers who fled and come to this. But the two advantages that Silicon Valley has always had has been risk capital. We have a lot of capital, and mentors. But we see that world evolving and changing. And it's not a question of if, it's just a question of when. And so we're looking at the MENA region. The other thing that was interesting was, we were asked about doing things in Europe and in France, and we were looking at how many French entrepreneurs we had funded. And the largest preponderance of French-speaking entrepreneurs we've funded have been the Lebanese. And there's like a Lebanese mafia within Alchemist as well. And so there are these ecosystems within the Middle East which are very different, but very entrepreneurial. And so we're very, very bullish on MENA as a region. But we are looking at it from the perspective of building global companies that happen to have MENA roots. And that's why the structure of how we're going to approach it might be a little bit different than others.
Any Qatari companies have gone through your programs?
Yes, we have a phenomenal Qatari company, Stelik. Well, it's a Carnegie Mellon Qatari company, and just stay tuned. That one's going to be amazing. An amazing team, and again, that's one where we need to bring them back to the United States for a little bit and get them some money, and then yes. But I think that team is going to be the way that the MENA region changes. Literally, those entrepreneurs are going to become, change is a contact sport. It happens through people, and it's going to happen through Sabi and his team, and it's going to happen through, in Jordan, we have Mohamed and his team, because they're the ones who understand both worlds. So, yes, we're very, very bullish.
Ali, why are you interested in doing a fund to invest in the MENA region?
Well, in parallel to what Ravi said, we started differently. The reason I started the fund in 2011, well, it was a very, very simple reasoning. I looked at Turkey. Half of our population is less than 30 years old. And we have 1.5 million babies born every year. We need to create 800,000 jobs every year just in Turkey to keep the unemployment level. And then when I looked at it, I also saw there was an amazing lack of capital investment in the youth. When you compare it to a US or to a European setting, we get about $1 per capita of early stage investment in Turkey. Compared to Europe, that's about $15 per year. Compared to US, that's about $150, $200 a year. And I said, there's something wrong here. There's a vacuum here. It's a great asset to have this, the young population, but just like with any asset, if you don't do anything about it, it becomes a huge liability. And I said, someone needs to do something about this vacuum. Someone needs to get capital to these young people and allow them to self-actualize, right? They need to be able to build their dreams and build these jobs and build new technologies, what have you. And our business case was, we have great talent in Turkey. We can build companies in Turkey. They will not become $1 billion in Turkey, but if we can actually empower them enough to actually take them beyond Turkey, to go international, to go to Asia Pacific, to go to Europe, or to the US, we can actually build significant success stories. And in our first fund, $30 million, we invested in 12 companies. And these companies so far, raised more than $65 million with our help. So we kind of proved our case that it's possible to start companies in Turkey with minimal effort, with a fraction of what they would require in a US or Western European setting, and take them beyond Turkey and make them internationally successful. And then, at the same time, we started traveling throughout MENA, and it was the same picture again. Young people, I'm told it's like half of the population is less than 25 years old actually, so it's even more, it's a bigger asset base, so to say. And again, the same picture like Turkey. There's lack of funding of technology companies in this region. I definitely believe that talent is global, but opportunity is not. And someone needs to fund these young people so they can reach their dreams. That's why we decided in our new fund that MENA will be one of our focused regions to come and invest in.
Okay, so so I've been around here for 5 years now in the MENA region, and I've seen a big shift in terms of the government support and non-profit organization support in the MENA. So government like Qatar and Dubai and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and Jordan, they're building public incubation centers, public accelerators. Non-profit organizations like USAID and others, they're also helping. So there's a lot of work that's been done to help fill the gap and do what you guys are talking about. So why do we need you? Why do we need private organization and private investors to come and help the region?
It's just because the private sector has proven to be the most efficient and effective way to create innovation. And it's just it's the idea of just aligning personal incentives in the service of the community. So I'll give you, so everybody wants to recreate Silicon Valley. And Silicon Valley really was started by Stanford at the hub. And just as a quick history lesson, without boring everybody, Stanford was a relatively young university. Even though now it's one of the premier universities, it was a startup. And it initially got its impetus from, in the 30s, Terman, who was the dean of engineering, got federal government money, which was research defense money, which led to a lot of core innovations. That government support was critical. But what created Silicon Valley was creating the risk capital industry, which was able to allocate capital against innovations in a way that created big companies. So the genius of Terman was he ended up licensing Stanford land to corporations like Xerox and Varian and others who came in and surrounded the university, and then that community ended up funding some of the professors at Stanford to create companies. So the first thing was called Fairchild Semiconductor, which was the precursor to Intel and all the other big semiconductor companies which created the silicon in Silicon Valley. And that was literally just a little mafiosa of private sector people that gave some of the professors money. So what the private sector does is it builds out the networks that the core innovation is that the government creates. And it's just venture capital. Even when you have somebody who's personally incented to create a return on your money, they will just efficiently allocate that money better than the government. And they will serve founders incredibly well. Even though it's out of self-interest, they'll ultimately deliver the best service for the founders and then ultimately for the whole group. So if you look at Silicon Valley today, we spend about 40, or in the United States, we'll deploy about 40 billion in venture capital. Corporate R&D, private sector R&D will deploy about $500 billion in research and development. All of that is essential to what makes Silicon Valley work. And the government, as great as it is, the reason why we get phenomenal MENA engineers and entrepreneurs to come to Silicon Valley is because we have the risk capital. We have the follow-on capital, we have the follow-on ecosystem, and the private sector is what builds that out. Sorry, that was a bit of a...
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Ali?
I mean, that's the capital part, right? But I think we also bring something else to the table. You know, in the last 5 years, as of this Wednesday, I've spoken to 1,967 companies.
You're counting them, huh?
I count them. You know, I have this amazing software called Pipedrive that was developed in Estonia, and 1,967 companies in 5 years. I speak to about 10 companies every week, 10 new companies every week. So this is the only thing I do day in, day out. We have mentor networks. We have a great, network of people who work with our companies. the only thing we focus on is the success of these companies, making them successful, making sure that they avoid the simple mistakes, in ensuring that they have the right legal framework, right financing, right teams, and whatever they need to actually take them beyond Turkey, and take them global. I believe in the government's role in the startup ecosystem as as an enabler. Like they need to ensure that the regulations and rules and law is there to enable these companies to get funded, to get funded, and to go beyond their countries of origin. But I'm also a capitalist at heart, and I do see day in, day out the type of impact we have on these companies. So I'm a big believer of private capital. I'm a big believer of creators being funded by private capital for profit purposes to create jobs, which also has an amazing social impact at the same time.
So I know you both arrived here just a day or two ago, so you hadn't had a chance to see the full 2-week program and the students and the projects from the beginning. But what's your feedback on what you've seen today with the 10 companies?
Oh, amazing! Founders are my heroes, and it's always amazed. You guys are heroes. And even though I wasn't here for the full 2 weeks, even in the last 2 days, you see the pitches just getting better and crisper. And all of the founders, I think, have experienced it's a little bit of like structured chaos going through the Innovation Academy. And in 2 weeks, you really feel what it's like to condense 2 years worth of experiences. And what is always super gratifying is to see how quickly things can change. And that's what makes everything exciting, my hope is not that Qatar is going to build its own Silicon Valley, but really that you're going to leapfrog Silicon Valley and evolve something that's going to become completely different than anything that was existed before. So, first of all, I was very, very impressed with the founders and all the stuff that was created. It really is a high caliber, fantastic presentations, and then the energy you can just feel. So the energy was infectious. It was great.
I usually tell people that we are blessed. I think I have the best job in this world, especially in this region, because we only see entrepreneurs, right? Day in, day out, every day. I only see people who want to build something, who want to change something, who are challenging the status quo, people who take risk, people who are optimists, people who build things from nothing with almost no capital, the whole world against them, their families not understanding what they're doing, minimal opportunity for self-actualization, and these are the only types of people I meet every day. So I think we live in a beautiful world because we only talk to entrepreneurs every day. And it was very impressive for me to see these teams that were built in the last 2 weeks who can, come up with such innovative ideas, come up with great presentations, like the ones that you just watched, an hour ago, and to see the fire in the eyes. You all felt the energy that we do every day. After just watching 10 companies and what they built in just 2 weeks. Like I said before, I think we have a great asset in our hands. We have amazing, young, educated talent in this region. So we have to do something with this talent. And I'm happy to see that Qatar actually took the first steps here, to bring all these people from different universities, different countries, different backgrounds, brought them here. They built, I believe, very interesting and exciting companies in a very short amount of time. And I'm very sure that most of them will go back wherever they are, continue their dreams or build new dreams, and actually build on what they learned in these last 2 weeks here. And that's why I'm in this region. I spent most of my life in the US and in the UK, and most of my friends think I'm a fool to come back. They are saying, we are all trying to leave. Why are you coming back? And I said, if you only saw what I see every day, you would definitely stay here longer, because I believe this region has amazing potential to be to build the leaders of our future. So thank you for that.
So I know we're all excited about learning who the 3 winners are going to be. But I'm going to ask one final question, and then I'll open it to the audience to ask if 2 or 3 questions, and then I think we'll take a break, waiting for the results. But let me ask my final question, and maybe this is an unfair question to you because of the fact that you don't know the MENA region enough, and maybe because I'm here. But what could we do better? What could government organizations like QSTP, like Qatar Foundation, like the government institutions in Turkey do better to help you build a better future for the region?
The biggest thing is risk capital, is getting risk capital, so enabling funds that can fund entrepreneurs and just sort of get out of the way and let the entrepreneurs drive. That is that's one thing. I think the second thing is to avoid there's an instinctive knee-jerk reaction to do Me Too versions of what you see in the West and do it for the MENA region. So be the MENA of whatever. And I think the opportunity for MENA and the potential is far bigger than that, is to really play globally. So what Mixed Dimensions is the Jordanian company. They're doing something that nobody in the world is doing and nobody in the world could do, because they have the unique gaming talent from these Jordanian engineers and 3D printing talent. And so what they're doing is, if you go and you see a major movie or you're playing a major game and you want to build your personal copy of your game character, they can 3D print that. Nobody in the United States can do it because the cost structure is too high in the United States, okay? And nobody in a low-cost market can do it because they don't have the engineering talent. Jordan is uniquely suited to have both. And so they can outcompete us in the United States, and they can outcompete low-cost markets. And so those models where you're thinking differently and doing things that are unique and bold and global, we need more of. And I think that happens not by holding tight to saying towards MENA exclusively, or selling out and saying I'm just going to go to the United States, but through hybrid models where you build companies that have one foot in each world. So I would encourage structures that can support that. And that's both funding more investors and funds that are going to support risk capital to go bigger, because there's a lot of seed capital, but we need more post-seed and A and B capital. And then also funding models. What we're thinking about with Alchemist, with our expansion model, are hybrid models, where founders spend a little bit of time in the Bay Area and also time in MENA, and they're split. Yeah.
I think we all have, the different responsibilities. The governments have to, make it easier for companies to be built, IP rights, to get funded, and make the legal system work. The investors need to start looking at these companies and start investing all this capital, that we are used to investing in infrastructure, roads and hospitals and everywhere else. Some of that needs to start going into these new ventures. I believe it should be going through funds or fund vehicles, but it needs to find its way to the entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurs need to start thinking international. They need to start thinking bigger. They need to get the self-esteem that your competitors around the world have so much of. I always say, I just was talking to a group of entrepreneurs, and they were saying, how can we reach someone like you? How would we dare, come and talk to someone like you? And I said, it's the other way around. I need you. I am an investor. I am able to start a fund, grow a fund, raise a second fund, because I have a deal flow. Without the entrepreneurs, I'm nothing. So we need to turn tables, right? So there are many entrepreneurs in this world who reach success without getting any investment from the likes of me. But there are no investors in this world who are successful without making good investments in great entrepreneurs. And on the public, I think the public needs to change as well. We need to start celebrating the entrepreneur, the creator, the builder, the risk taker. We need to start celebrating these people. I'm not sure, I haven't seen a Qatari newspaper or anything, but in Turkey, it's the football player. It's the model, it's the so-and-so businessman that people see on the cover page of the newspaper. You don't see the entrepreneur who took risk, who was starving for 5 years and struggled for 10 years and sold his company for $1 billion. We don't see those people. We don't hear about these people. I think it's time that our region starts celebrating the people who take real risks. I think that's what the public also needs to learn and start celebrating these people.
Very good. Thank you both. And I'm going to open it up now to questions from the audience. Microphone.
Okay. Thanks for your presentation. I would like to ask Mr. Rafi about the. You mentioned like there is a company that you're having in your Alchemist Accelerator that's in 9 months she gets $1 billion industry. I'm so curious about knowing like what they exactly do. Thank you.
So that company was Slack. They were not an Alchemist, but Stuart Butterfield, who's the CEO, came to my Stanford. He's spoken at Alchemist. He's spoken at my Stanford class. Have you used Slack? How many people here have used Slack? So you can ask any of these people, and that's the reason why it's become $1 billion in 9 months. So it's the reason why Slack has become the biggest company in the shortest period of time in terms of valuation is because the very use of the product spreads the product. So its growth curve is naturally viral and has high engagement. So they went from 0 to 10 million in monthly recurring revenue in, actually it was 10 million of annual recurring revenue, I think, in 9 months. And so on a revenue basis, actually you would be like, how can they be worth $1 billion if they're only doing 10 million in revenue? But it's like 100x. But the growth was so high because Slack is a communication platform. It changes how you communicate with your teams, and so the very use of the product spreads the product. So their growth was just off the charts, and so that's why they got such a high valuation in such a short period of time. The beautiful thing about Slack is that team, I think, was literally 12 people. When they got to $1 billion valuation. And I think really the core team was like 6 people. So it really takes just 6 people to build something that is a game-changing platform. Those 6 people don't have to be in Palo Alto, California. They can be in Doha, or they can be in Amman. You just need to have 6 great engineers. That's the ticket, and a strategic focus on something that you're just maniacally focused on to build the next game-changing company. So that's the inspirational thing about that. Yes.
I'm wondering, we've now just completing the first Arab Innovation Academy. I'm one of the chief mentors. It's been fun and fantastic to work with the teams. What are your expectations of what's going to happen next? And how is an event like the Arab Innovation Academy helping to build entrepreneurship and innovation in the region? What's going to happen next? And how are you going to help it?
I'm assuming this is to me. The question
it's actually to all 3 of you.
So the Arab Innovation Academy was really an extension of what the European Innovation Academy folks have been doing over the past few years globally. And the main goal is that we found that there is a gap in the academic education for students that can only be filled through an experimental educational program like the AIA, where we bring students from multiple backgrounds and multiple countries, and you put them through, I call it an extended hackathon, right? So we all know about hackathon. A hackathon is a 3-day, 2-day, 3-day where people sit and code. But building a business and building a startup has significantly more element than just building a product or coding. So the experience of going through a 2-week intense or 3-week intense boot camp where people come from all over and learn how to team form and get educated allows them to do 2 things. One is acquire the mindset of tech entrepreneurs, and 2, learn that building a tech company, there's a science and an art behind it. We demystify that. So by doing that, they learn that not only I'm capable of doing it and I can do it, but also I understand that when I want to do it, there is a method to doing it. It's not just magic anymore. So the main goal is educational experience for the students. Now, a good side effect of that is that there are always companies that actually, or teams, that end up sticking with it and taking it to the next step. And the next step may be going through a formal accelerator in a country where they come from or a country where they're hosting them, or going through an incubation center, or sometimes getting some angel seed investments to continue with their projects. And that always happens. So there are two things that we take it, two dimensions. One is that this experience, we want to repeat it. And we want to repeat it often and more. I don't know if we want to necessarily always repeat it in Qatar. We want to see it more everywhere. We want to see it not just in the Arab region, but around the world, because we believe very strongly that this is core to building the future, is the entrepreneurship and innovation. But on the other hand, I think there's some tangible benefit that come from the program in forming companies that could potentially actually become innovators in the marketplace. Where is Harold? Is he keeping the time? How are we doing on time? Oh, okay, I have time. So we'll take 2 or 3 more questions.
Yes. Yeah, hi, thank you for the amazing event. I'm Mohammed Hourani. I'm the product manager of EMA. It's one of the products that being funded by QSTP. Well, actually, I just have one question, which I believe that you can help us in our product development. Now, we're a Qatari company that is building an airport dashboard, which is, we are aiming to go internationally, let's say. So we have one obstacle that we might be facing, or we started facing, that we as a Qatari company, we might be not really believed in the international industry. Even sometimes here, they might be preferring some proven countries like the US, UK, European. So this is one of the issues that we might be facing. So if you could help us with your experience, please.
So this is a very good question, I think. So these guys have a good product, they have a good team, but when you go to the international market, there is no historical confidence in Qatar as a country that have produced technology innovation to sell on a global level. So what should they do to overcome that perception?
Well, one is if you're addressing a pain point, which is really a salient pain point, part of this is a healthy thing, because it's going to be forcing you to articulate the pain point that you're solving for those airports that is so significant that they don't really care about where you're from. They just need to get that pain point solved. So if you're doing that, people will not really care where you're coming from. They'll just care if you understand the pain point and if your vision is something that they have confidence in. So that's the first thing, is you want to really qualify you want to qualify the use case of what you're solving with these airports abroad. This is the classic enterprise sales adoption curve. I know if you feel like you're being disparaged because you're Qatari, the reality is that you just have to choose where early adopter markets are and own it. So this applies to all enterprise companies. The way that you know that you're operating in a way that is effective is if your sales cycles are shortening. That first sale might feel like it will take a while. And you might need to approach it not by saying that we're trying to sell something, but we want to invite you not to be a customer, but just to be on our customer advisory board. So why don't we're assembling an advisory board of 5 customers from 5 airports around the world, and we have this alien technology that does this amazing dashboard thing. We don't really know what to do with it. Do you want to give us your input on what you would do if you were us as an advisor, not as a customer, none of this scalability technology stuff, and then just start the relationship with them as an advisor. Once they see the technology, and once you do one round where you're getting all of their advice and feedback, and you understand their needs better than anybody else, iterate on the product and say, hey, can I follow up with you and get your reactions? and follow up with them very soon, like after a week, and say, hey, we just iterated, and then build something that's very, very catered to what that person really, really needs. Then you have the advantage because nobody knows their needs better than you do. Then you can invite them to a conversation about a procurement. You can say, hey, we're now at this phase where we're trying to just choose 3 partners to focus on. Do you want to be part of this next phase of the relationship? So don't even get into the whole thing about, do Qatari technologies build modular, scalable platforms? They won't even think about that if you architect the relationship in a different way. That's one way to think about it. Yeah.
I agree with Ravi 100%. Your disadvantage is not the fact, I believe, that you're a Qatari company, is that you are new in the product market in general. And we always used to hear, the tagline that no CIO will ever get fired for choosing IBM or Oracle. That means your competition, whenever you're selling a product to a company, there's an Oracle sales rep selling the exact same product that they don't have yet, but they can pretend they have, and they have an advantage over you in that aspect. What they don't have an advantage over you with is your commitment and passion to serving the customer. And that's part of what Ravi is saying in terms of really articulating to the customer that you truly, this is you, the founder, the product manager, is going to go to that sales meeting and articulate your value proposition to them in a way that makes them understand that you truly understand their pain point. You're not just a sales rep from Oracle who's trying to read to them something that the product manager have written to them. I'll give you an example. Just one data point, and I'm guessing Alchemist, when you go through an accelerator program like that, they teach you all these tricks because they help startups overcome the challenges that are faced with sales cycles. So in 2003, I believe, when we had our software company selling to hospitals, we lost a deal in LA. And we lost it to PeopleSoft, which was at the time one of the largest ERP vendors. And we said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get on the plane and go and meet with the customer just to ask them why we lost the deal and how we can overcome that. So didn't take an appointment, didn't call them, flew to LA and actually parked in the parking lot waiting for the CIO of that hospital to show up. And when he showed up to work, we ran after him. And we forced a meeting with him. And we sat and we said, all we wanted to know is understand from you what we could have done better. And that was a genuine effort, by the way. We were not trying to change their mind. We were just trying to understand how we can improve our pitch so that we can actually win that deal in the future. A week later, they changed their mind and they came with us. And that was a pivotal time in our company that made the huge difference. And things like that is what's going to enable you to win the early adopter market that Ravi was talking about.
The key insight there is ask, your customer has the answer. Just ask them, what would we need to do to improve our perception? What would be the criteria that you would need to hit? And they'll tell you that. And then don't talk about it as a pilot. Just say, hey, why don't we do an initial phase and call it a risk mitigation phase, the scalability risk mitigation phase, not a pilot. We're just going to validate scalability. And we're going to do that with just a small deployment. And we'll do that, and at the end of it, all I want from you is that we get all the stakeholders together and we just review the results. And we'll even do it for free. Why don't we just use our technology as a hedge against whatever you're already doing as well? So there's lots of ways to just engender that type of relationship. And the key thing you just need to do is have a learning mindset where you're just like, hey, I'm trying to learn. Help me. And what would you do if you were I? And it's all about, at the end of the day, it's not about being Qatari or there being a certain airport. It's going to be people. And it's just literally just people and having that relationship with those people.
And if you haven't met Sabih yet from Stellic, meet with him and talk to him, because now they're up to 6 customers in the US. They've been in the same boat, and now we're building a community here where people can actually share knowledge and know-how and learn from each other. It is also a Qatari-based company, and by the way, they're much more disadvantaged than you are because they're kids. They just graduated, and they already sold 6 customers in the US, enterprise solution, against other competitors who have been around for 10, 15 years. So there is a lot of learning to be had talking to people like that.
They're rock stars trapped in kids' bodies.
May I add something? Because this is something I hear quite a bit. Like Ravi rightly said, it's not about being Qatari or not. It's about having the right solution. It's about solving a problem in a real first setting at an enterprise level, providing the service that's required, the business continuity planning that service requires, especially in airports. I'm assuming that's very important. We have companies who are selling in Singapore, based in Istanbul. We are Singapore Airlines uses technology that's built in Istanbul, outside of a 20 square meter office, and that company is about to get money from Sequoia, actually, which was never done before in Turkey. Their biggest success was getting rid of that. Oh, we are a Turkish company. Would they actually would someone in Singapore use my technology? Samsung is their client in Korea. I think that we as a region have to get rid of. The world is not telling us, these stories. We tell ourselves these stories and believe in them. Oh, I'm Qatari, oh, I'm Turkish. Would they use my product? What about my accent? Would they hold it against me? As long as your product is good or better than most of your competitors, as long as your service level is at the global level it should be, please don't build these bridges and don't build these walls around yourself. The world doesn't do it. We do it ourselves most of the time.
Good afternoon.
Hello,
I have a question for three of you guys, and it's more on the term accelerator, because the world today is just producing accelerators. Can you just give your thoughts on how that's going to change, on why each accelerator is different? Because you've got a lot of these aspiring entrepreneurs with some great innovations, and they want to jump into an accelerator, but now they're inundated by so many. Which one makes the best one for them, and is really an accelerator the right way for them? And just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I would say that accelerators are sort of like universities. In general, it's a good thing for founders that there's a lot of accelerators, but there are, just like there's different types of universities, and some are very high tier and some are very sketchy. Like, don't go to Trump University. There will be accelerators are the same. And the first thing, obviously, I'm biased because I'm at an accelerator, but the key thing if you're a founder, when you're thinking about an accelerator or you're thinking about an investor, is talk to the founders that have taken money from that investor or have gone through that accelerator program, and they will tell you the honest truth of what that experience was like. So that's the first thing. And then, there are also third parties that are doing a job of getting all the data and really trying to rank and provide more transparency and visibility into these accelerator programs. And so do look up those third party providers and to get really a good understanding of what you're getting yourself into. I would say my advice in general would be to, just like with investors, is to, if you're thinking about doing an accelerator, apply to many, see what options you get, and then grill them, and even negotiate with them if you need to, and make a decision if it makes sense for you to do it. I do think for the top tier accelerators, it does what it's supposed to do, which is really provide you with a really rich network and a structured path towards fundraising and customers and mentorship, and community, which can be very difficult to do on your own. But you can do it on your own. You just need to understand what that all entails. But, yeah.
I'm a big believer in accelerators, personally. Because especially in our region, what we lack is the money, the capital, but also the human capital that will help the entrepreneurs out. We have very few second-time entrepreneurs, let alone first-time entrepreneurs. We have very few mentors, let alone mentor networks. Most people don't want to share their network, and the corporates don't really want to hear about startups usually, and they don't know how to work with startups. So before actually going to a VC or an angel investor, I think it's very important to actually build the networks, build the mentor team around you, So I think having access to a good accelerator and piggybacking off that asset is very important. Like with anything in life, I think, like Ravi said, you need to apply to many of them and interview them and see what's the best one for you. But I believe they can only help.
My view on it is that accelerators or acceleration business is a service business. And the only way you differentiate your service among other services is through quality. And the only way you can deliver better quality if you narrow the focus of your customer segment so that you can understand exactly what your customers are needing. So I'll give you an example. In QSTP, we don't have one accelerator, we have four. Four accelerators. One is focused on the Qatari local community who work every day from 8 to 3 o'clock, and they only have some time to work in the afternoon. So that accelerator program is a 3-month program where people come after work and actually work on an idea that they have to see if whether or not there is a market potential for it. The second accelerator is an accelerator for companies that already have a product in market and they want to learn how to grow. And we do that through a partner, 500 Startups, because they are the best at delivering the quality for that particular accelerator. The third accelerator is this one. And this focuses on students who have ideas, who want to learn how to actually build companies. And we do it with a different partner. And that's the European Innovation Academy, because they are the ones who deliver the best quality for that particular program. And the last one is our Research to Startup Accelerator, which focuses on research projects that sits in research labs around in Qatar to try to actually bring them to market. And the needs for that accelerator and the type of partners you have to bring on board to get the best quality is also different. So where they're all called accelerators, everyone has a different process, a different structure, different goals and objectives. They all at the end of the day focus on building tech entrepreneurship. But we understand that our market segment and our audience for every one of them is very different. And therefore we had to put together 4 different programs for them. Take one more question. Last question. Yes, thank you.
Okay. I want you to imagine your 20-year-old self in front of you, and you have 60 seconds to give him advice. What would you say?
Learn, 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 learn. And the only way you learn is you put yourself in context where you push yourself, you're learning about different environment and different things, and you're allowing yourself to fail.
Don't be scared to be different. It's a lot, you'll have a easier and wealthier and happier life if you're the only game in town and you're unique versus trying to be hyper competent in markets where everybody is. So whether that's medicine or engineering or whatever, that's a hard game to play, and you have to always be worried about being the best. Whereas if you're the only game in town and you're doing the weird thing that nobody else wants to do because they think they have shame or they're fearful, it'll be easier and a lot more fun, especially if it's something that you really love.
I'd say meet as many people as you'd like, as you can. Travel the world, look at different cultures, make sure you learn something new every day, challenge yourself, ensure that you actually do something scary at least once a week, and see your weaknesses and see why you are scared. And work for small companies. Instead of going after corporates with huge infrastructure, work for small companies, see how a company is built, see how a company grows. Before you do a startup, ensure you work for a startup, because it's a huge learning experience. And don't forget that you will be challenged for the rest of your life. It will never end. And if you're lucky, you will do something new every day for the rest of your life.
Please give a big round of applause for our guests, Ali and Ravi. Thank you very much, Ali. Thank you, Ravi. I'm going to like to invite Harold back on the stage to tell us what's next.
Yes.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Maher, for the
Stick
interview.
around, okay? Don't go anywhere.
We will continue with the program. Next up, we first want to invite 2 participants of the Arab Innovation Academy on the stage. And after that, we will have a video recap of the 2 weeks. Let's welcome on the stage Mariam Al Naimi, and Mohammed El Urzizi. I hope I got it right. Big applause, big applause. We encouraged them to share what was their experience on the past 2 weeks here at Arab Innovation Academy.
Hi everyone. So as you've seen today, this entire event in the Arab Innovation Academy has developed a lot of amazing ideas, and we've had a lot of teams go through hectic experiences through the past 2 weeks to try to develop their ideas. The video you're about to see shows a lot of people, including myself, talking to you about all the steps we went through with marketing, prototyping, and trying to understand how to make our idea a reality.
And so I will just give you a little idea about what happened during the obvious 2 weeks. Imagine spending sleepless night consecutively during two weeks and then being excited. From time to time we forgot about lunch or dinner. We don't care, but we are excited and we are energetic more than normal days. And this energy and all of that stuff, you know that you are in the right place with the right people. And this program allows us to, I believe in learning by doing. And so this program teaches us how to build a startup from scratch during 2 weeks. And guess what? I have met the right people, and we have got the right product market fit, and we are just getting started. And I will be always grateful for the people who made this happen. And the following video will just be a reminder for me about how this experience was a life-changing for me. Thank you.